For a lot of veterans coming home, one, we got to truly experience just genuine emotional intimacy as amongst humans. You know, the human mind can be your greatest asset. It can also be your worst enemy. The human mind seeks comfort. It seeks the status quo. It seeks the path of least resistance.
Are you ready for something that's going to have you on the edge of your seat? And I feel really sad that these kind of recline because I can't really get on the edge of my seat very good. We are here with Mike Sarraille, former Navy SEAL, Lieutenant Commander Mike, but he told me to just call him Mike. I'm struggling with that part. We have lots of questions to ask, but I think the most intense question, Carter.
You went to A&M and you are a Longhorn fan.
What?
Yes.
A house divided cannot stand, and it's in your own soul.
My wife is a Red Raider.
Oh, wow.
So we've got the trifecta. A&M it served a great purpose in my life at a young age while I was an active duty Marine going through. The global war on terror kicked off when I was there. But College Station was a far cry from San Diego where I was stationed in the Marine Corps.
Oh.
So I would drive to Austin quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just to go have some fun and get out of what is it, that one street with the bars in one location. It was monotonous.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a different drive from Austin to College Station.
It is.
Yeah.
If you've been to San Diego, then maybe you know what he's talking about. For most of us, we're like, but it's so quaint.
It's so quaint.
And he's a Navy SEAL. Quaint don't work.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I guess just take us from the beginning of, especially with the things that a SEAL does and your upbringing and why you wanted to go into the military in general and when you kind of knew about taking that next step into such a commitment.
Yes, absolutely. So, I've got to state that I'm a born-again Texan. I did all my higher education in Texas.
Yes.
I actually was born in the Bay Area.
Okay.
Great, devoutly Roman Catholic family, very strict. Loved growing up in California, but couldn't wait to get out of there when I hit the age of 18. I made the decision after a very short, unsuccessful stint in college to join the Marine Corps because I had met a Force Recon Marine. That was the version of Special Operations for the Marine Corps back then. The guy impressed me. I wanted to be just like him.
Yeah.
Everything about him, just people gravitated towards him. And he helped me get into the Marine Corps when I was exiting college early. And, love the Marine Corps. Marine Corps is renowned for taking young men and young women off the street and then turning them into an utter professional within 3 months.
An excellence
by honor,
machine,
courage, and commitment. And it really gave me the discipline and accountability in life to succeed. But the global war on terror kicked off. I'd become a recon Marine. I'd become a scout sniper. And the Marine Corps wasn't part of an organization known as SOCOM, the Special Operations Command, which had primacy over all the missions that came down the pipe.
Yeah.
And the Marine Corps ended up getting the scraps. So joined the SEALs, went through that training, which is it's known as the hardest training in the military. I know
you're surfing through this very quickly. What drives anybody to want to go, this isn't tough enough? When you're already, you're right, the Marine Corps is associated with excellence. So you're like, but I can do more. What? Where? You've always been that kid?
I've always gone an untraditional path, as my mom would say.
Okay.
Because most people just go directly into the SEALs. And going through the SEAL training was not the last hard thing I did. There's another level to special operations, which we just don't need to talk about. And that had an even higher attrition rate than SEAL training, where 80 to 90% of the students wash out of the training and don't become SEALs. But, I would love to give you some great answer, but the truth would be probably pride and ego, because as a recon Marine, you're constantly looking at the SEALs and everyone's saying, well, that's the toughest training in the world. And part of your ego says, well, then I've got to go show that I can do it. Mm-hmm. And both, the Marine Corps and Navy are a department of the Navy, so it's an easy transfer, what we call a lateral transfer. And I don't regret my decision to switch out of the Marine Corps, even though I loved it. And in a lot of ways, the Marine Corps was better led than some of my experiences in the SEAL teams. The SEALs put me in a position to post 9/11 to actually contribute to what I call divine judgment through divine violence, to bring the fight to the enemy who had struck us and taken so many American lives.
Yes. Okay, so I've heard it said when you Google things. Look, we already talked a little bit before we were talking here that the movies we see are just maybe that much of what you really deal with. But I've heard it said that there's the 40-60% thing where when you think you have hit capacity, you're only at 40%. You still have 60% that you can give. Is that an actual like moniker or?
It is. What you're talking about is psychology in the human mind.
Okay.
And so, the human mind can be your greatest asset. It can also be your worst enemy. There's two voices in your head. And most people succumb to the negative voice of, hey, you've gone too far. You need to ratchet it back. Where your mind, if you learn to control it, can be a power. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the human body is resilient. It can go farther than you think. It's your mind that will stop you from going the distance that you ultimately have set your eyes on. So it's vitally important that you learn to master your mind and know when to disregard the negative voices and keep driving forward.
What's the first key in doing that? And you're talking to civilians, obviously, but like there's skyrocketing numbers right now, data for anxiety, kids who don't know how to socialize, and so they're feeling down more than ever. And being able to give them some tools, give ourselves tools as we're trying to talk.
So arguably society, we've put a cap on the amount of risk we put our children in.
Right.
And I'm talking about calculated risk. We're not throwing them to the wolves here.
Right.
But the more you expose somebody to adversity, to hardship, in a very smart, calculated way, you push them outside their comfort zones. Where most humans, again, back to the human mind. The human mind seeks comfort. It seeks the status quo. It seeks the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. It wants to stay in the comfort zones. So you've got to expose people to discomfort in order to truly learn and grow. And so the more we can expose our kids to discomfort while being there to monitor and make sure that they're safe, you start to see their confidence grow. If they're a shy child, you put them in situations with other children, you expose them slowly and increase that exposure, they start to come out of their shell. It's the same with speaking. I speak on this side as a living now. Mm-hmm. But do you think I was comfortable stepping in front of it was 700 people at Work Fifth? No. At first I was scared, you know what?
Right.
And then somebody gave me a good piece of advice. It was a SEAL. I won't regurgitate what he told me. Probably not radio friendly for a Christian station.
Appreciate it.
But I remember that, and it's basically it's the equivalent of screw it.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we also, here's the other thing, is that failure is part of excellence.
Yes.
There is no excellence without failure. Mm. But we now have fear of external judgment because social media allows people to judge you from what I call keyboard cowards, from behind a wall under an anonymous name. And so people just stop trying.
Yes.
Part of life is having the guts to try and just tune out what other people say. Screw them.
Yeah.
Screw them.
What was the mindset? I heard you talk about some of the leadership, techniques and qualities specifically that you learned. One thing that it's great. I just didn't really expect it to come out the way that it did. I heard you say you led with love in the military.
Yes.
And so what is kind of that mindset that you have taken from that to be able to, whether it's business, parenting, anything like that, how did you see it displayed that now drives the way that you operate?
I love this question. You guys ready?
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's a big one. I feel like that would be a struggle for a lot of people coming into civilian life and trying to translate over all that drive and tenacity into now I'm a dad at a homework table. I think that
everything translates.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
Environments and outcomes or consequences may differ between professions, but everything translates. So let me demystify what warriors are, first off, because there is still a segment of the United States, a large segment who never had anyone who served or didn't serve themselves, that sort of take their opinion of the military based off Hollywood, that we're all just a bunch of asymptomatic sociopaths that go forward and kill. It may be that is true to some degree.
Well, it sells tickets, so.
Yeah, it does, and that's what sells. Mm-hmm. But the most lethal warriors who I had the just distinct honor and privilege to serve alongside were the most kind, empathetic, respectful human beings you'll ever meet. but they had this ability to dial down their empathy, to go forward and wage violence against the wicked. And we were against the wicked. The things we saw the enemy do, Islamic extremism, it was disgusting.
Yes.
The warriors I knew weren't loud. They didn't talk about how many medals. They didn't use their rank. They loved the men and women beneath them. And sometimes they didn't like them all, but they still loved them. And the highest form of compassion and love is accountability. But again, people view accountability as this external force coming in and having to hold you accountable. Well, it was reframed for me at a young age in the military of, hey, this has nothing to do with you. It's the mechanism through which we help you learn and grow. If we see you do something wrong, hopefully with professionalism and tact, we're going to come pull you aside and say, hey man, what did you learn from that? You didn't do it well. Let's talk about it. Let's learn, let's grow. And if we need be, share those lessons with others. So, when you look at parenting, let's translate it to parenting. I think, let me know if this phrase hits with you guys. The sort of goal of parenting is to raise kind, empathetic, respectful, competent human beings who contribute to their communities and society as a whole.
Yes.
But more importantly, as parents, we know we're not going to be around forever.
Right.
So our children then grow into adults that have the resiliency to fall down, pick themselves up by their bootstraps, learn from their mistakes, and continue on in life, and hopefully pass that to the next generation.
Yeah.
Would you say that's a fair statement with regards to parents?
Yes.
Yeah.
No different than leadership.
There was a moment, Mike. My oldest son has autism, and I remember as a parent, this is when moms have to kind of release your husband over to the Holy Spirit. But my husband knew to push, and I didn't feel it. I wasn't feeling it, but he did, and it has helped my son overcome so many obstacles that are very common among kids who have the same thing that they deal with in learning and other situations. And so I have seen the benefit of not robbing our children of a struggle. I have seen it firsthand. How do you differentiate? You talked about knowing when to dial down. That doesn't make you inauthentic or unauthentic, if I'm saying that probably wrong, but how do you do that and know when you're not? No, the balancing act. I mean, you don't want to, obviously we're not trying to abuse our children, but we want the best for them. And we know we would be robbing them if we don't encourage to push.
I'll answer that in two parts. So what is the byproduct of adversity and let's say increased exposure? Resilience, confidence, the ability to demonstrate, learning and growth. So we just shy away from hardship anymore. And it's almost like a culture of everyone gets a trophy. Some of the best lessons in life are when you don't win that trophy. Yeah. And again, this is as a parent, you have to come in, just like the leaders in the SEAL teams and the Marine Corps would see me fall short, come in and coach and mentor. Yeah. And that's important. But the second part of what you talked about, when do you know when to stop? And I think that's learned knowledge of, hey, okay, I pushed them too far on this one. It didn't result in a lesson learned. Maybe it's more of a traumatic event. And you learn your son or your daughter's limits and know how far to push them. I'll push them to that line and for a reason, but I'll be there to coach and mentor them when they fall.
That's good.
And a large part of what I care about is the youth coming behind us are always the next best generation, not just the World War II generation. It's the next best generation if we prepare them to be so.
Amen.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. The accountability thing reminds me, I heard a story about Nick Saban, the Alabama football coach. This player was late to a meeting, and you don't be late to a Nick Saban meeting. And he snuck in the back, and he
Is this the guy who's really mean that you've showed me?
Which coach?
Sorry.
Which football coach are you referring to?
The people in Alabama are rolling right now.
So the player snuck in and he asked a couple of players or even assistant coaches what I do. They're like, it's fine. Just don't, just play it cool. And they tell him, Nick Saban comes up to him before the game and says, you're not playing today. And I want you to know that you're not playing because you were late. You're playing because you didn't come to me and hold yourself accountable for what you did. That's the only reason you're not playing. We're all late sometimes. And so it kind of reminds me, I mean, of just that way of thinking and that process. Is there an example from the military or otherwise that that accountability that I was able to hold that person to, or somebody held me to, really stands out in my mind that I'll never forget?
So I probably was that player when I was younger. That's the truth. But you bring up a great point. Accountability and discipline. Again, discipline we view as this external factor. What you're ultimately trying to do, not only with your children, but the people within your organization, your colleagues, is to instill self-discipline and self-accountability. Much like the highest form, a high form of love is self-love. So you've arrived, and that young man, that Alabama player, learned an invaluable lesson for which he will never forget.
Yes.
And probably change the trajectory of his life. That's what inspirational leaders do. So, the ability to instill that within people is so vital. And you've arrived, like I said, when people start to step up and admit a mistake for which no one was around and they didn't see it. Same thing in the SEAL teams. We do something called an after-action review with the military as a whole. I'll get away from the SEALs for a second. After a mission or after training, we do something called an after-action review, where we all pull in and we talk about what went well, more importantly, what went wrong, and how we're going to change it moving forward. How do we get better? That's the pursuit of excellence. And some people will know that a certain person made a mistake, and we're waiting to see that person come forward and say, guys, I made a mistake. And if they don't, that's when it's like blood in the water. The sharks will rally, and they're going to learn that lesson very quick.
Yeah.
But I got to a point in my career where I would sit down with my leaders. Maybe they had taken command for the first time. And so I'm having an introductory meeting with them because I'm one of their officers underneath them. And they'd give me their expectations and standards, and they would think the meeting's over. And I would always wait. And I started to do this probably with my last 4 commanding officers. I said, sir, we're not totally done here. Hey, if I do something wrong and you see me do something wrong, I demand that you hold me accountable. Pull me in, help me learn. You've got more experience than I do. You've got different perspectives than I do. And if you see me doing something that causes you an allergic reaction, pull me aside on the spot. And they almost appreciated that because they knew I was saying, I'm going to hold myself accountable, but to accelerate my learning and growth, I need you to do the same.
Well, you talk about a little bit of ego maybe played the role in getting you to the SEALs, but that's humility right there. That's recognizing I'm not the be all and I don't have all the answers. So there's another balancing act.
Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
Yes.
I?
We talked about that. Thinking that you're an expert on something until you realize.
I'm getting old, Mike. I'm
know a
forgetting
little
more.
bit, yeah.
When you're young and you've hit some success, like my early days in the SEAL teams, my early combat deployments, you think you know everything. That's
Okay.
youth. We call that Mount Stupid. It's not until you grow and get more experience that you come down what we call the slope of despair.
You mean you fall down? Yes.
To realize that you don't know what you don't know. And with wisdom, and this is the beauty of age, wisdom and a lot of experience, is you start to come up the slope of enlightenment. And you approach it with humility, that you don't have all the answers. No matter how far you've gone, there are new experiences in the environment around us, and people as a whole are changing at a more rapid rate than when we were younger.
What age do you feel like you started falling down that Mount Stupid?
I usually tie it back to guys I lost in combat. And then, again, my military career, I ended up at a unit where I barely passed the bar to make it into that unit. And the very first operation that I went out with with these guys is they lost a guy named Adam Brown, for which there's a book called Fearless. A phenomenal Arkansas boy, just an amazing individual. And that night was so kinetic and so chaotic that I had these large eyes. And I'd asked one of the other more very senior SEALs, in fact, the most senior enlisted, I said, hey, is every night like that? And he looked at me and said, oh, God, no. That was a particularly bad mission. And it was a realization, again, I'd had some success early in my career that, oh boy, there's a lot for me to learn, and I'm going to have to work my tail off to stay at this place every single day. And I did. I lasted 6 years there before it was just my time. But when you walk away from 20 years, and I ended up with 10 combat deployments, You've got a lot of time to reflect. There's a lot of decisions I would have made differently, and I've just taken that experience, which is very much part of my DNA, and applied it to everything I've done going forward. And the business world is completely new, regardless of I have an MBA. I said that made me just dangerous enough to sink a company. But every business opportunity I've had has been a different experience in which I make new mistakes and I smile. That's just life. And if I'm willing to learn from those mistakes, then things are going to be okay.
I have only heard about the difficulties through friends of coming back to civilian life and trying to step around carefully. There's eggshells on the floor. All just, how can we connect better to our loved ones? Is there something that I can hold on to empathize? If someone calls our listener line, says, Rachelle, Carder, please pray with us. My loved one just came back from their post. For years they've been there and they're struggling now. And we've gotten those calls, Mike. So what can you share into that?
This is probably another podcast in itself, but let me condense it. So, one, I would speak to the veterans first. You can't sugarcoat the transition. I struggled through it until a great man and a great woman who ended up being my wife entered into the equation. And they helped me out because I was doing some very self-deprecating things. It's hard to, as I say, hang up the gun belt when you've been doing it for so long. But we've got to reframe and get in the mind. For a lot of veterans coming home, one, we got to truly experience what just genuine emotional intimacy is amongst humans. That's called brothers and sisters in arms. And I'm going to go off topic. My sisters in arms were amazing. And I can speak for how we treated the women in the military like little sisters who could defend themselves. But we treated them with the utmost respect. I've got daughters. Most of the guys I served with have daughters. And they were phenomenal, and they were a valued part of the mission to bring the fight to the wicked.
So glad you shared that.
But, war does break you as a human. But I like to say, people can't break what's already broken. You take those cracks in your shell and you start to view them as armor, as experiences. And rather than post-traumatic stress, I believe in post-traumatic growth, that we saw things that we saw both the worst and the best in humanity. And it makes you kinder. It makes you more genuine. It makes you more authentic. It makes you more respectful of what we have. And the military and civilian culture are so vastly different. You go from one of the best support mechanisms called the military, where it's about brotherhood and sisterhood, and then you enter into the civilian world where the sense of community is almost, it seems like it's dying from when we were younger. And so you had a purpose, and all of a sudden, you're in the military one day, you're handed a piece of paper called the DD-214, your exit document, and you wake up in your parents' house, or you wake up alone. And that's hard.
Yeah.
And, for the civilians, we went forward so you wouldn't have to see the things we do. And just let them know that they don't have to go through this alone, that the things that connected us before that individual went into the military have not changed. Those common threads.
Yeah.
And help that veteran remember that, hey, you're still my son, Mike. Nothing about that has changed.
Yeah.
You may have seen some things.
Yeah.
But let's find a way to put that down.
Yes.
And to move on. And be thankful for the experiences that you had. And be forever thankful for the sacrifice, whether, they gave their life or not, to go forward in our name. And be thankful for the memory of the fallen. As we say, they gave their tomorrow for our today.
I'm glad you asked that too, because I think finally just thinking kind of from a Veterans Day time, should the average person, how can we show respect? Is it a simple thank you for your service, or what just when you encounter not even something you necessarily know, but you see the uniform, what's the best way to show respect?
A thank you, a genuine thank you never hurts. And I've heard veterans say they don't want to be thanked. I think that's an immature approach. When somebody thanks me for my service, I thank them for paying their taxes, because we used every penny of it. Thank you for that. We had some great training. We had great gear. It's sad that veterans only get one day. I'll say that. And our fallen only get one day. As a veteran, we say every day is Memorial Day. But we as a nation collectively need to do more for the veterans. We don't do it well compared to other nations that reintegrate their veterans into society. And quite frankly, the military is never going to solve this one. It's on you, those that never served, to be prepared to reintegrate them. You guys approach it from a faith-based aspect, which is key to remind them of their faith. And let me clarify, there are no atheists in a foxhole. It's a common phrase we say. It's the one thing. I think your faith grows as you go into a combat zone because, as we say, my men, God, my faith, and my gun were the only things that comforted me. And faith grows. I mean, I used to wear 3 rosary beads on my chest, a Catholic thing. There's a long story behind it. But if I were to fall, one would go to my daughter at the time, one would go to my son, and then one would go to my parents. Oh. And so, guys, there wasn't a time I wasn't flying in on the helicopter into a mission where I wasn't praying to God, but it was very specific. Thank you. Look after my men, and if need be, take my life instead of theirs. Wow. And just sometimes God doesn't work that way. It didn't work according to that prayer. But he looked after us, and man, the guys I served with that are no longer with us, those are the heroes. The rest of us are just survivors of the war.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yes.
We appreciate
you. And your taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Sarraille, Navy SEAL, business extraordinaire now, and so motivational. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you both. God bless.